Hi everyone, welcome back. 20 to 11. This project is almost wrapped, so we'll get to 20 to 11 in a second. First, before jumping in, I just wanted to plug my friend John, John at the Digital Gramophone. You can look him up. He does great videos. He's doing his top 200. I think he's on 150 to 141, maybe 160 to 151. I watched last night. His videos are great. No surprise from me because he and I have very similar taste. But he's really thoughtful, and he actually edits his videos, unlike me, who does not. So check out his videos. And before I jump into 20 to 11, I did go to my local record store yesterday, made a few purchases, and I figured I'd just highlight those just to take us off the top 1 million for a second. I bought this, the Waxahachie record Ivy Trip. This is only the second record of hers that I own. Came out in 2015 on Merge. I obviously love St. Cloud, which came out last year. I think she has a date in the Bay Area, but I think most of her shows are sold out. So I'm hoping to see Waxahachie soon. And then I also bought the new Japanese Breakfast record, Jubilee. Sorry. Let me put the computer back to sleep. There we go. Jubilee, which came out yesterday. The song Be Sweet, I Can't Stop Playing. And this was quite the deal. So bravo to Dead Oceans, which I've only heard great things about that label. It is a colored vinyl. Let's see if we can get it out here. So for the collectors, it was $1 more for the colored vinyl. It's 19 bucks versus 20. And it came with a Japanese Breakfast slip mat, which is very cool. That came as a freebie. So I am actually just about to finish her memoir, Michelle Zauner. I don't know if I pronounced that right. I hope I do. Her memoir, Crying in H Mart, I will finish today. It's about her relationship with her mother, who passed away, and it's just a great, great book. So excited for those two. And then one last one, which I'm not a fan of this artist. I'm not a fan. I've tried a couple times and just never gotten into her music, but what she's done with her latest release, and this is Taylor Swift. You see it was 15 bucks, $14.98. She has been sending these out, I believe, only to independent record stores, and they're signed. So, and they don't up the price of them. To me, that is an artist really thinking about her fans. So I got this just as a collector. I probably won't open it. I'm gonna listen. I have friends who really like Taylor Swift, so I'm gonna give this record a listen. I hear it's great, Evermore. But I just want to applaud the thoughtfulness. Apparently she's sending out tons of these to independent record stores. The store by me keeps getting them in. They have them, they sell out immediately, and then they get a new batch. So props to Taylor Swift on really taking care of her fans, not upcharging them, and just, that's what more artists should do, that kind of stuff. So bravo to her. So let's jump in. Number 20, we're just gonna go 20 to 11 today, so it'll probably be a shorter video unless I'm long-winded, which I often am, so we'll see where this lands. Number 20 from 1998 is Marat. Kids in Philly was in my top 100 as well. That was their second record. This was their debut. So just an outstanding debut. Came out on vinyl not long ago. This is really just a place in time for me. Late 90s, Philadelphia, sort of traveling back and forth between Brooklyn, where I lived at the time, and Philadelphia. just such a great time. So many memories with so many different friends. My friends Maggie and Frank, who live in Philly. My friend Brendan, who used to live in Philly. My brother Lane, who I've mentioned on all of these videos. He and I have some incredible memories from seeing Marat. If anybody knows the story of Marat, they put out 2 great records on independent labels. This one I think was on Black Dog Records, which was Chris Hudson, who is the brother of Carrie Hudson, who was the lead singer of Blue Mountain. It was his label. And then they signed, I believe, to E Squared, if I have that right, Steve Earle's label. And then they got a short major label stint where they put out a record that their core fans turned against. It was produced by some big-time producer. I honestly don't even know that record. I started to get a little bit back into them after that record and some of the records in the mid-2000s, 20,000 Streets on 20,000, I don't know the name of it. But this was the period, 98 to 2000, when I think Marat was probably the best band in the world. If you go prior to 98, 97, I think Sun Volt was one of the best bands, 96, 97. Wilco were obviously putting out some great stuff. But Marat in this period, some of the greatest, one of the best live bands ever. If I do a top 10 favorite live bands of all time, these guys will certainly be in there. It's hard to find footage of them during this period, but you can find later year footage. But this record, their debut, which I don't even think I've said the title of yet, it's a fantastic title. It's called Let's Cut the Crap and Hook Up Later On Tonight. Formula Cola Dollar Draft, one of the best songs ever written. Firecracker, Limb, Eventually Rock, Phantom Eyes. This is a masterpiece. So at number 20, Marat's debut. Number 19, one of the most beautiful records I've ever heard is Nick Drake's 5 Leaves Left. Came out in '69. One of Nick Drake's 3 records. All 3 are masterpieces. This, with that very famous now, cover of Nick, I think in London. But this record, Nick Drake, every year it seems like his popularity grows. And after having a career that was not successful, we lost Nick Drake early. I believe he was 27. I think it was an overdose of pills. I'm not quite sure. But it was in his parents' house. It's just a sad story. But Nick Drake is just a tremendous talent, an incredible songwriter. Some people say his songs are impossible to cover because of his guitar picking is so hard to replicate. Valerie June, who's one of my favorite recent artists, just did a cover of Pink Moon and sort of does a really new rendition of it. It's one of the first times I've ever heard Nick Drake covered well. One of my favorite artists, I won't say who, tried Pink Moon live at a show in Brooklyn once, and it was not good. So Nick Drake's 5 Leaves Left, one of the greatest talents in the history of music, should be mentioned right alongside Bob Dylan, Townes Van Zandt, as the greatest songwriters ever. Just a gorgeous album. Number 19. Number 18, this is a reissue that just came out, so I'm grabbing the newer, nicer, heavier version. This is John Lennon's Plastic Ono Band. My favorite post-Beatles album by any member of the Beatles. The song God is in my top 5 favorite songs of all time. Working Class Hero, of course, is on this. This came out in 1970. There's Baby John on the back. A little bit older John. and then John and Yoko, this famous cover, which I saw an unboxing of this, and they mentioned how the colors are richer in this reissue, and I agree. It looks really, really pretty. But this is just top to bottom. I know my friend Brian and my brother used to play this record a lot. It's one of the reasons I got into it. But just a remarkable record, and again, my favorite non-Beatles album by a member of the Beatles. And there are a lot of great ones. All Things Must Pass by George Harrison, Ram by Paul McCartney. But that's my favorite. Next, at number 17, came out in 1988. This is Public Enemy's It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. As I mentioned, it was the first CD I ever owned. This on CD, along with Bobby Brown's My Prerogative, were given to me as a gift. This record opened my eyes. This started I don't know if it started it, but it was right near the beginning of my journey into hip-hop. So started with Public Enemy. My favorite became Big Daddy Kane. I mentioned Eric B. and Rakim, Paid in Full, made my top 100. If I had the Big Daddy Kane record on vinyl, it would have been in my top 100. I only have it on CD. But this, Bring the Noise, Don't Believe the Hype, Show 'Em What You Got, Prophets of Rage, Rebel Without a Pause. It's such obviously a very political record, and my interest in sort of public policy and equal rights and started right around this time. It was here, and then when I went to college, I started taking a number of Black Studies classes. I actually missed being a Black Studies minor by 1 credit, which I regret, and maybe I'll go back now 25 years later and secure that minor. But this record, it just, growing up in suburban New Jersey, a town that was 90% white, very conservative, hearing music like this was just, it changed how I think about everything, not just music, but the world, and this country especially. So just an all-time classic. On the right day, this could be my favorite record of all time. A masterpiece. Number 16 came out in 1963, and this is Bob Dylan's Freewheelin' Bob Dylan. Just Girl from the North Country, Masters of War. I think this, what else? A Hard Rain's Gonna Fall, which is probably my favorite Bob Dylan song. This is a original master recording version of this. I did I told you the thing that I'm doing, put the record out of the sleeve. Don't Think Twice, It's All Right. Oxford Town, just Blowing in the Wind, of course, starts it off. A masterpiece, and one of my favorite Bob Dylan records. Leave it at that. Next, at number 15, second appearance by this artist in these 10. Nick Drake's Pink Moon came out in 1972. Of course, Nick Drake sort of had a newfound popularity when Volkswagen used this song in one of their ads. It was a tremendous ad. Whoever the music supervisor was for Volkswagen at the time, they used Pink Moon. They used a Richard Buckner song, I think Ariel Ramirez, a Sunvolt song. You'd think that was my job. Wish it was my job. Would have been a great job. But Nick Drake's Pink Moon, his final record, I think it's only 28 minutes long. It's perfect. And Nick Drake, again, just such an unbelievable talent that we lost way too soon. And if there is an afterlife, or if our souls live on, I hope Nick Drake is getting to enjoy the sort of newfound fame that he's had over the past 20 some odd years. It looks like I'm going to move this a little bit because I have a skylight, and I didn't realize that this is the time when it starts to pour in. So move over just a little bit. Next, at number 14, is The Clash's London Calling. We're getting into records where I really don't need to say that much about, outside of my own personal stories. And this came out in 1979. Just punk, pop, rock, blues, I don't know. This has everything, and it's, I think a lot of people would argue, the greatest record ever made. This Miles Davis kind of blue. A couple others, Born to Run, maybe. But London Calling, every song is great. Death or Glory. I remember when I first moved to California, 16 years ago, I used to drive around and listen to this a lot. And I remember, I'm pretty sure I got a speeding ticket because I was listening to Death or Glory so loud that I was driving at a speed that even I didn't realize I was even close to. I think I was in like a 35 and going like 65 or something. I apologize for being a dangerous driver that day. I think it was off a highway or something. I got a ticket, and I almost wanted to tell him I was listening to London Calling. Like, that's what happens when you listen to this record. Your sort of spirit takes over. So, London Calling by The Clash. Number 13. Is it 13? Yeah, 1995. Son Volt's brilliant debut. Did the record thing back there. A perfect record. And all these records could be number one on any given day. And this record has been number one when I've done lists in the past. So a record that is obviously very dear to my relationship with my brother, which I've talked about a lot here. I can't remember if it was 94 or early 95. I flew, and I know I've told this story, but it's worth it. I flew to Cincinnati to visit my brother, got off the plane. I remember it was about 105 degrees out, super humid, and I got into my brother's car. He had a beat-up maroon Honda Accord, had no air conditioning, he had a tape deck, and I remember I sort of got in the car. We just sort of like said, hey, like that's how we were back then. I was young, I was like 21 or something, and he popped a cassette in, and it was the demos from Trace, which are now released on the expanded version. And I think there were 4 songs. It was Too Early, Route, I believe, Tear Stained Eye. I'm not sure if Windfall was on there. Windfall's obviously probably the most popular song Jay Farrar's ever done, and it's a phenomenal song. But my brother, he picked me up, and I remember he played the demos, and I remember we were so into Uncle Tupelo and Son Volt and those guys back then. And I remember I was just, that feeling of sort of joy / being shocked, and being with my brother, who I hadn't, at the time, I think it had been a year or so since we had seen each other, was just overwhelming. I was just so happy in those moments when we were driving. And I remember he said, we're just going to stop at the liquor store, which we did. And I think he was drinking Grain Belt at the time. My brother had very specific beer, Yinglings, which any of his friends watching this know. But I think he got a case of Grain Belt, and we went back, and I remember we put the tape in his living room and kept playing it over and over and over. And I remember I grabbed the Jayhawks Hollywood Town Hall, the CD, and I was going to put that in. And I remember he said, what? No, we're just going to keep listening to this. And I was like, all right, I was just thinking maybe we'd mix it up, but I'm on board. And that's what we did. One of my fondest memories with my brother. And every time I listen to Trace, I think of that day. Number 12. Only 2 more. I'm trying to beat the sun here. Number 12, 1972. This is also, I own this record because of my brother. This is Big Star's #1 record. This is their one album. Let's see what happens when I get into the sun. It gets better without. There we go. Only got 3 more minutes. We should beat it when it moves over here. #1 record. I was in Central Jersey with my brother, Lane, at a record store. I didn't know who Big Star were. I don't even remember what year this was. And I just remember we were collecting vinyl back then. And it was probably the mid to late 90s. And I think I was in the Big Star section. I was like, who is this? My brother's like, oh, they're great. Like, you should pick it up. And I think it's this one. This is an original I think this is it. 1972. I think it's worth a few $100s now. And I think it was $6 that I picked it up in the store. Big Star had not reached their sort of newfound popularity, which was obviously sort of is that the right word? Catapulted by, they were the theme song, In the Street, which is on this, right? Yep, second song. Third song, was the theme song on That 70s Show. It was re-recorded by Cheap Trick, but that brought a lot of people to Big Star. One of my favorite bands, Chris Bell's a hero of mine. 1972, Big Star. And at number 11, most people probably think it would be higher, and again, on any day it could be, is Wilco's Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, which came out in 2002, really came out in 2001. So I remember I went like a year or two without listening to this record, and I was in Manhattan for business, and this was probably 2 or 3 years ago. And I got there, I think the night before, and had some free time, and I went for a walk, and for some reason I was inspired to put this on. And I remember how different it sounded walking in New York City, because I was living in New York City when this came out. And a lot of people that are familiar with this record know that despite the fact that Jeff Tweedy wrote these songs prior to 9/11, the lyrics, the music, the sort of feeling of the record that, was largely created by Jeff and Jay Bennett, it feels like 9/11. Tall buildings shake, voices escape, singing sad, sad songs. They have a photo of these towers, which are in Chicago. And this was all prior to 9/11, despite the fact that it came out in 2002, I think April. All these demos were already released prior to 9/11. So I don't know what was going on in Jeff's head, or Jeff and Jay and the rest of the band. But when I listen to this in New York, it just sounds different. It reminds me of that time. And I remember I saw Wilco, I think it was September 26th and 27th at Town Hall in New York City. So just a little bit over 2 weeks after that tragic day. And I think I was in the first row, and it was just sorry, we got to fly here. Just a strange show. And I remember either before or after the show, I was on, I think it was 8th or 9th Avenue with my friends Maggie and Frank, and we were sort of just walking down the street talking about the music and what had happened 2.5 weeks earlier, and it was just very powerful. So we are down to 20 to 11. Top 10 comes next. Thanks again. As I mentioned, every sub is $1 to Backline. And I hope you all have a nice weekend or are having a nice weekend. And I will check in a few days. Take care.